Thanks for tuning into the Pacey Performance Podcast. So this afternoon, I am delighted to welcome Andrea Riboli. So welcome to the podcast, Andrea.
Hi, Robert. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for coming on. Few technical issues, but my laptop's fine. Everything's okay. We're good to go.
Perfect.
And I'm going to speak a little bit slower just to make sure the communication from English to Italian is doing okay. So
Okay. It's good having me. Thank you very much.
No, pleasure. Anyone that doesn't know who you are, Andrea, do you want to give us a bit of an introduction on your background, education, and what you are doing at Atalanta?
Okay. I study at the University of Milan. I try to study sports science and exercise science or exercise physiology. I got a PhD at the University of Milan, and at the same time, I work in soccer, especially in exercise physiology and soccer. I started about more than 10 years ago with my first internship. My first internship was in a laboratory of physiology. I try to test different players such as runners, middle distance runners, long distance runners, and I do a great experience about physiological testing, both in laboratory and on the field. Then I moved to soccer. That is my main sports, and I work. Always in internship for AC Milan. I did I had a great opportunity to work with a great society, a great club. I try to work both with a professional young player and using different type of data, different type of testing modality. This was a great opportunity for me. At the same time, I want to try to do the PhD, because I believe in research. I think that as a strength and conditioning coach, we need to improve our abilities continuously using data, using statistical analysis. And then I had the fortune to move to Atalanta, firstly with a youth player, and then since about 7 years for the first team. I work with the first team. And now, since about 4 years, I work as head of sports science. We work. I work especially with the first team, but I work with other 4 guys that work as a sports scientists in the academy. So we can collect information all in the same way from the under 15 to the first team. This is our work as my main. Now I'm continuously working research. The fortune to collaborate with different researchers, both in Italy but also abroad. And I will try to increase my ability to perform research, because I believe that is really important for me and for a strength and conditioning coach.
Mm-hmm. So we are 24 hours after a good win in the Champions League for you last night against Midtjylland.
Yes, it was a good result for us, but we need to wait, because we have there are a lot of matches that we need to play against a fantastic squad, fantastic team, and so we need to. This is the first step. We are happy, but now we need to work as strongly as possible to prepare our squad, to prepare the next matches.
What is the expectation for Atalanta in the Champions League?
No, this is a question that I don't know what I have. We will to try to perform as better as possible. This is our main topic. We want to try to play again all team, whole squad. This is a great experience for us, both for technical part, for director, for all club, and also for our player that now have also international experience. But all are younger guys. They want to increase continuously their abilities. So this is our aim. Try to play. Try to increase our our performance ability, but we don't know what we need to expect from Champions League. We want to play as better as possible.
Okay. So one thing, the main thing that I'd like to talk to you about is designing conditioning for football players, for soccer players during small-sided games. Is there a big focus for you and Atalanta to do all your conditioning work in small-sided games as much as possible?
Okay, we are working a lot using Smallsided game because using the monitoring tools, we can collect a lot of information both from external load, locomotor load, and physiological demands. So we are working a lot to collect information from every drills and every exercise that we perform during the activities. Now I'm speaking for the first team, but also for the youth team, because we work exactly in the same way. So we are working to collect information and to try to improve our knowledge about all aspects that clearly about what we can measure now about the demands of small-sided games, because coaches often work the greater part of the training session. Each training session is based on small-sided games, because the coaches use possession play or small-sided game with goalkeeper to increase the technical ability and also the technical and tactical abilities of the player. So, in my opinion, one of the main challenge for sports scientists and fitness coaches, strength and conditioners, is to determine the load imposed on the player from the coaches. So if you can, we share information with the whole coaching staff, with the head coach and with the assistant coach, to work closely as possible to the match performance, as most of the game probably is one of the principal aspects that have altogether technical, physical and tactical part. So if we can modulate some aspect as pitch size, for example, or duration, we can use intermittent small-sided game or different, especially pitch size. We recently published an article about this. So we try to speak with the coaches about this part to help them to increase the intensity using sport-specific aspects. So if you can to reduce the general part, probably it could be better, because if they can reach, for example, high-speed running and sprint using sport-specific activities with the ball, playing in some tactical behavior, probably it's better because it's more sport-specific than general parts. So we are trying to determine as precise as possible the locomotor and physiological demand of small-sided game.
Would you be able to talk us through that recent article about the designing using area per player to try to replicate demands?
Okay, I read a lot of paper. We can see a lot of paper in the literature, and we can see a lot of very important information about the use of small-sided game in larger pitch sizes, small pitch sizes. But we will try to have an aspect an information simple to share with our coaches, because we can induce similar physiological responses using different pitch size, for example. But an international paper said as information about the use of 3 versus 3 in 20 per 20 meters, 6 versus 6 in 30 per 50 meters, for example. So we try to collect all information together, normalize all information during our activities for meter square per player, and create a relationship between meter square per player and intensity meter per minute for different locomotor metrics. So we can share simply an information with our coaches. normally, if you want to increase sprint over a small-sided game or during a small-sided game using our session, probably you need to utilize a hardware per player higher than 300 meters square per player. So we can share simply this information with our coaches. So if you want to play exactly in the same way of the matches when you're using a small set game without some rule modification as different type of running, pressing, or if our coach will to utilize simply a small set game, probably you can use for example a 5 versus 5 in an half of the pitch, or simply 300, more than 300 meters square per player. Or if you want to increase, work on very high speed running to reach speed higher than 20 kilometers per hour, we need to use more than 250 meters square per player. It is only a way to speak simply with the coaches, to share one information, then 5 versus 5, 30 per 30, 60 per 50. This is the main aim of our study.
Has that been utilized at Atalanta? So have you used this in practice, and do you continue to use this method in practice?
We collect all information during our practice. So all small-sided game, all the results are based on our experience. So we collect day by day all small-sided game, all pitch sizes, and we try to create this relationship. We found a very large correlation between area per player and intensity during game for each matrix. The only metric that is less variable across different pitch size is the acceleration and deceleration that were higher also in small pitch sizes, but in large pitch sizes. But for other metrics, clearly we increase the demand, increasing the area per player. So we collect all information, and then we create these results based on our experience directly on the field, and then we try to write a paper. Clearly we use them on our practice.
So has it been easier for the coaches to understand the area per player to then design training, or are the coaches still happy to be more general with 5x5 on half a pitch, for example?
No, I don't have a really answer to this question, because I think that is simple. It's simple for a coach. We need to understand what a coach, our assistant coach, will to do on the pitches. For example, sometimes they will to work especially on technical part. So we know that in small pitch sizes, the technical part, the number of touches increase, and the number of touches per minute is higher than the number of touches that a player could perform in a greater pitch size, for example. So if they would to work on a technical part, increasing the number of touches during the session, and they would utilize small pitch sizes, we can speak with them and give us the information. Would you to work only with this? Okay, we have to work we need to try to increase, for example, high speed running using another exercises. So, we can use a greater pitch size at the end of the training session, for example, 1, 2, 3, or 4 repetitions, depend from the aim of the exercise. Or we could introduce different general exercises, both all inside the small-sided game, small pitch size, with different rules. For example, a sprint every X number of touches, for example, or after the small-sided game, small pitch size, using the sprinting or intermittent running, generally based running-based exercise. It depends, but in my opinion, it's simple to speak with coaches.
How would you, at Atalanta, periodize small-sided games throughout the week? if you had, for example, I know you've got Champions League in midweek, but if you had a Saturday to Saturday, how would you look at small-sided games during that week, and how would you manipulate all these things we've spoken about?
Okay, a really difficult question.
Sorry.
It's not simple because it's not simple because we have normally we have two type of weeks, as you know.
Yep.
The first one is one match a week, and the second one is two matches per week. Small-sided games are always, at least in my experience, as always utilized from coaches. Coaches, at least in my experience, in our experience, utilize always small-sided game in every session. The only variable aspect is the intensity of them inside the week. For example, clearly we can introduce one. We normally use one high-intensity training session per week when we play one match. It was in the day after the match or 4 days before the next match, normally 3 or 4 days before the next match. This was the most intense training session, and in that training session we utilize larger pitch size, or we work to increase the intensity of small-sided games. But we increase the intensity could be also high heart rate using small pitch sizes, or high speed running using greater pitch sizes. It depends from the aim of the. But we try to use small-sided game coaches over all day utilize small-sided game, but clearly the difference is the intensity. We normally utilize 1 day of very high intensity small-sided game, especially also to overload high speed running or sprinting inside the week. And we utilize in the same way one training session for the player that didn't play the day before when we work on two. So probably the difference is when we play two matches is for the player that don't play, because if I play, I do a lot of training load during the match, so I need to recover. I don't need to work on small-sided game, but I need to work on other aspect. If I play every match, probably the physiological demand of small-sided game are recreated from match load. And we need to increase this aspect in the athletes that didn't play. So it's difficult to determine a clear way on how we modulate a small-sided game, but this is the main approach.
Is there any rules? There's lots of rules that you could put into a small-sided game to try to manipulate what happens. Is there any ones that you could talk to us about that you sometimes utilize to get what you want, just to give people an idea of how creative they could potentially be with rules in small-sided games to get what you want?
Okay. It's not simple because when we monitor a small-sided game, clearly it's not as a running-based exercise when we can individualize all aspects with a great precision. We need to manipulate training load, considering that we have a great variability within the players. We found also in the paper that we published, we found that the role that it's more difficult to overload if we compare their physiological locomotor demand during small-sided game to their match requirements is the forwards and the central midfielder. So, for example, if you create a great pitch size or a great area per player, for example, more than 300 meters square per player to increase also sprinting, the role that we need to look at with more precision is forward and center midfielder, because forward often don't have the space to run in a small pitch sizes, the small side game, small pitch sizes. So they play in a really different way than the requirement during the matches, because during the matches probably they have the space to go for the goal during counter attack, and it's more side they don't have space they need to turn and shoot, and but they don't have space to run and to increase their velocity. Similar the center midfielder, because they have a great important demands during the matches. They run a lot, but it's really difficult to recreate their match demands using small-sided games. So we need to try to work all position similar to the match demands or overload, but central defenders is the player that work for the most part of the practice near to their match requirement, while central midfielder and forward, at least in our experience, are the player that work for the less part of the training session near to the match requirement. So also utilize small side game, we have this difference, and we need to consider this difference, and we need to decide we want to increase their demands using also other exercises, individual exercise, positional exercise, or it is enough to increase pitch size or using similar exercise that other role. It depends from the weeks, from the moment, from a lot of things, but it's not simple to overload all players in the same way. So we need to live monitoring, for example, help us in this. So we know if a player cover low high speed running or sprinting, and if sprinting is the principal load we want to recreate in that training session, probably we need to create something different, some specific rule for a forward, for example, or for midfield, or for that player that need to increase their sprint. But it depends from the practice, from the training session, but it's not simple to recreate all training load using sport-specific drills, similar training load in all players.
So would something like that mean that your central midfielders and forwards would do extras as an option?
Yes, it's an option. Could happen. For example, could happen that we utilize some small-sided game with some tactical behavior for central midfielder and defender, and at the same time in another part of the field work with forwards to increase their demands, because we know that using another type of small-sided game or tactical behavior similar to the small-sided game utilized with central midfielder or defender, they couldn't reach their demands. So we can increase working in this way, small-sided game with some role and some positional drills for another role, for example. This is one option, or we can recreate some supplements, running-based exercises. It depends.
I'm interested in the strength training and how this is fit into and around your small-sided games. And I know this is, again, not an easy question because you've got Champions League in midweek, but where does strength training fit for your players at Atalanta?
Okay. As you know, it's not simple to answer to this question. We normally utilize also overloads using squats. This is the principal exercise for us. Okay, so we work also utilizing high loads with our soccer players in the gym. So the strength normally and power is performed inside the gym before to perform small-sided games. But sometimes it happen also that we did a training session only based on strength in the gym without small-sided game, it could happen. So we can really overload the strength, really overload some also power aspect inside the pitch, sprint or other change direction. But the main exercise is based on high load, for example. But this is probably the schedule that we can perform when we play one match per week. When we 4 years ago, we was able to qualify for the Europe League for the first time. It was fantastic, but we needed to better understand how increase or maintain strength and power playing a lot of matches inside the season. So we speak with other strength and conditioning around the world, also with conditioning working in NBA, for example, because they play a lot of matches. It's basketball. It's different from soccer, but we can increase our knowledges speaking with other sports practitioners for basketball or other. And some strength and conditioning coaches suggest us to utilize strength or explosive power in the gym also when we have only 3 days to the next match, for example. So we work on this. We try to increase the ability to perform a greater volume of strength inside the gym in the week when we play the match, and we try to maintain strength also for the player that play one or more matches inside the week, with clearly a little volume, a lower volume of strength, but maintain continuously over the week. Because we can't reduce strength, at least in our opinion, because we need to maintain the ability to train also with a high load on the gym. So this is as now we are trying to work. Probably in the next month we can read some paper or try some experience differently. But now we are trying to work on strength also when we play one match, clearly with a lower volume. But I think that if an athlete is able to perform, for example, 100% of their normal volume of the activities, if I perform 50 or 40% of the normal volume, I can have DOMS in my leg. I can feel stress from there, but I can feel my legs more active. I can maintain strength. This is our approach.
In Italy, what is at Atalanta as well, what's the culture like for strength training? Is it quite inbuilt? Is it quite developed that the players expect to do strength training?
Also, this is not a simple question because it's really different from the player, because some players have experience on strength, also using a high load, and they are able to perform a good squat or snatch, or also other exercises typical from the power training. Other one that have some problem couldn't perform this type of exercise, or not couldn't, because probably all guys could, in my opinion. But we need to consider some aspect to reduce the volume or to help them to increase their ability to do some type of exercise, and their expertise to perform a different type of exercise. Also in academies, the culture about strength is different from the different academies, for example, because some academies, if the first team, sometimes happen that if the first team usually utilize high load the academy utilize high load or trying to work on this way. Probably is not the good way, the good approach. In my opinion, we need I speak about now. I speak about our expertise in Atalanta. We try to help our younger players to increase their ability to perform a squat or to perform a different type of exercise, because they need to be athletes before soccer players. If we need to try to increase their ability to perform different type of exercise also in the gym, for this reason, they need to do expertise. For example, for endurance, they could play using small set game in more specific way. They could play using positional drills, but they need to improve their ability also to run long distance interval runners, for example, 4, 6, 8 minutes. In the same way, we need to improve strength in a different way, sport specific and not specific. They need to improve their technique to do squat, to do snatch, to do because they need to be athletes before then soccer player, especially in the academy. Because it happened that one player could play with us. We can utilize squat, for example. They go to another club working with a different type of strength, so that they need to be able to adapt their and need to be able to work in a lot of different ways. This is our opinion.
You were saying that the academy at Atalanta is very successful.
Academy Atalanta have a great history. Is one of the most important club for players who are playing in Serie A or in the most important league in Italy. So they have a great history. They believe a lot in academy, and so the players have also results, individual results playing in Serie A, all and team have good results winning championship. So Atalanta have a good history in this with the academy part.
Have you found, when you've been playing in the Europa League and the Champions League, have you found it more difficult to maintain strength, or do you think the strategies that you've put in place with your players to reduce volume has worked to help them maintain strength and power throughout the season?
It's a really difficult question. Also, this. I believe in. Firstly, I give you this information. I believe in monitoring. Mm-hmm. So I think that we need to collect a lot of information to increase our knowledge about our player, because monitoring wellness or training status help us and our player to better understand a lot of information, and collecting information help us to train and to make decision for practice. On this basis, we try to monitor both endurance and strength across the season. It's not simple to, for example, to develop the strength during the season, also the endurance, but normally we see a maintenance of the strength and the power, for example, during jump test, for example, or during the submaximal running test, physiological results during submaximal running test. Normally we maintain their ability, probably we have the greatest, as is normally soccer, the greater improvement during the pre-season, because we can work a lot on all aspects, and then we probably sometimes see some improvement over the season in some periods, but it's not simple to determine a clear increase, or normally we can maintain. But if I don't speak about data, I speak about the feeling of the players. The players feel good, utilize strength also when they have 1 or 2 days of recovery until the next match. So they feel good. Normally we monitor also wellness before using wellness scale before training sessions, and they feel good. They don't have pain. They don't have DOMs. Also utilizing strength. They report a good feeling with their leg. Also utilize strength. So we believe that it could be possible. It can possible to utilize a strength with a reduction in volume. But clearly, we don't have the perfect strategy. We are not always sure about. We need to collect information to try to perform as better as possible. But we don't have the right answer to this and to all aspects of training conditioning.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned submaximal testing. Would you are you okay to talk to us a little bit about when you would do the submaximal testing and why, and what you collect to try to understand more about your players?
Okay, we are trying over the last year. We tried to monitor a player across the season. But clearly it's not possible to perform exhaustion test. Probably it's possible to do an exhaustion test 1 time in the week in the first part in the pre-season, but then it's not possible. We have a very congesting periods. It's not simple, but we need to have some information. We are working. Exactly in these days, I'm writing a paper that I hope to submit as soon as possible about this. We can have a lot of information of training status using training load on the pitches or small-sided game feedbacks. So we need to try to have also other information, and we try to insert some submaximal assessment perform now, and in the last season we perform a yo-yo submaximal test. It is validated. It is well reported also in literature. 1 per month to determine the heart rate at the end of exercise, the peak heart rate, and the heart rate after 60 seconds of recovery. So we can monitor also some physiological variable. It's a simple tool. It lasts 4 minutes, not more. All player could perform it all together, so we can monitor their heart rate and I believe that it is useful because we saw a maintenance on performance. We see an increase in performance after the pre-season to in-season, and a little bit increase in performance during the season. But we saw that the most important feedback is that the player that not play all matches decrease their performance ability. And this is interesting because I don't know if it is the right test, or probably we need to. The best way is to collect a lot of information, not only one feed. But we don't have time. We need to try to collect some simple information, and this could be a simple information to know if the player that don't play have a decrease in performance. Help us to rethink about our approach, the training load that we did on the player with that player, and change something on for example, the day after the match for the player that then didn't play. So we work on increase a little bit the load the day after. This is, in my opinion, a way. I don't know if we can be sure about but we are trying to increase our our monitoring approach to collect data about a lot of aspects: external load on the pitches, internal load during small-sided game, during wellness scale. We are trying to collect information using Submaximal tools. And at the same time, we are trying to increase our our ability to perform research on this data. I believe in that. I believe that we need to improve our ability. I speak for myself. I believe in research. I think that it could help us to utilize data not only for day-by-day monitoring, for actual load determination, but also a little bit slowly for perform some research project to increase our technologies that could permit, or we hope to permit us to rethink about our training load modeling. And I believe in that. It's not simple because it requires a lot of time, I know, but it's important because we can continue to know something new, working with other researchers, with other guys working in apply and practice, but also research. And so we're trying to collect more data, and we are trying to better understand how they can be useful for us also performing research.
With this submaximal tests, have you seen that correlate well with your wellness questionnaires and the other data that you collect on the response to training and matches?
Okay, well, we don't already correlate the yo-yo submaximal data with wellness. Okay, we're trying to work on the relationship between training load and training induced changes in your submaximal test.